Okay.
Everybody got their microphones on?
Affirmative.
All right, I think we are good to go. Okay,
Are we set?
Yep.
Okay, I called Plan Commission public hearings to order on Thursday, March 11th, 2021 at 6:30 PM at the Richard Young Fire Station. Could we have a roll call?
Chairman Osterman. Supervisor Plotecker,
Here.
Commissioner Nelson.
Here.
I've got Commissioner Meyer on Zoom.
Here.
I've got Commissioner Samansky.
Present.
Planner Holloway is on Zoom. Attorney Michael Van Clunen.
Here.
Engineer Mitch Lysis on Zoom. Administrator Kathy Nicholas. And Clerk Capazzo to record the minutes. Commissioner Olhafen is absent and excused.
Okay, notice is hereby given that the public hearings will be held by the Lisbon Plan Commission on Thursday, March 11th, 2021, starting at 6:30 PM at the Richard Young Memorial Fire Station, North 54, West 26455 Lisbon Road, Lisbon, Wisconsin, 53089, to solicit public comments on the following. Public hearing 1 is conditional use permit request for a solar installation in the Q1 quarrying zoning district for the applicant Tyson Strankman / Sunvest Solar Inc. on behalf of owner Hans Dawson / Sussex West Quarry LSP LLC for the properties located at North 51 West 24011 Lisbon Road, LSBT 0280.992 and North 51 West 24073 Lisbon Road, LSBT 0280.999. Okay, is there anyone here tonight who wishes to speak on this hearing? Please state your name and address.
It's on.
All right, name is Joseph Osterman, North 51, West 24181, Lisbon Road, Pewaukee, Wisconsin, 53072. Obviously, I've recused myself from this public hearing on the agenda item tonight, excuse me. First lived this address in 1979. I purchased this home from my grandfather who helped build this home in 1956, which is for you for the record, before any of the quarries or asphalt plants were on the south side of Lisbon Road. 4 generations of Ostermans have lived in this home. My uncle Richard, who is also here tonight, lives directly south of me at North 51, West 24175 Lisbon Road, Pewaukee, Wisconsin, 53072, and is the closest house and property to the project. He appears to be about 50 feet off the project's 50 feet off his southeastern lot line. We've had a good relationship, actually a great relationship with the quarry since Land and Stone took over, and I've always had a good relationship with Stark Asphalt. My uncle and I have concerns about the solar farm that is proposed and are undecided on the proposal as presented. So to be clear, we are not saying they were necessarily against the solar field or that it shouldn't go here, but we are concerned based on quantifiable evidence and questions I will list. A, solar field farms are new to this area, so there's a lack of local knowledge on them. B, we have an extremely limited amount of time to review and discuss this project. We received a mailer on or about March 1st, then we really did not see the proposed project until the Plan Commission packet came out on March 5th. It also appears the planners and staff had not had much time to review this project. On the 12 different application materials listed on the planner report, 3 are listed as being received on February 19th, which is 4 days after the application deadline of February 15th. 3 are listed as being received on February 26th, and 6 are listed as being received on March 1st, 3 days before the planner report is dated and submitted. For something that is completely new to this area and community, I don't think having only 3 days to review some of the documents, such as the site and construction plan set, is a responsible thing to do. The proposed solar array is a non-specified conditional use. This means it was never planned on or thought about in our community. As the commissioners will remember, we just went through and completed amendments to our Chapter 11, which covers conditional uses and changes to the state law. This being a non-specified conditional use does not mean it cannot or should not go here, but it does need more review and thought than a specified CU would. Of the 5 different criteria the commission could deny the project, the ones we have concerns on are the following. Number 2, be hazardous, harmful, noxious, offensive, or nuisance by reason of noise, dust, smoke, odor, or other similar factor. And this one, noise is one of the concerns, as well as fire. First, the noise, referring to a June 18th, 2020 article from ancetech.com written by Michael Balatarian. I might have screwed that name up. And quotes, the most visible part of the solar field is the large solar panels, and these indeed produce no sound. However, there is noise generating equipment at solar facilities, and they are inconspicuously sited on small concrete pads. The article talks about the inverters used to convert DC power from the solar panels into AC current. Michael then also states this process produces a tonal sound at twice the electrical line frequency of 120 hertz and its harmonics at the 240, 360, and 480 hertz and higher. He also speaks of transformer noise. He states there are 3 sources of noise from within the transformer: the core noise, the coil noise, and the fan noise. But it is almost always the pure tone transformer noise and not the broadband fan noise that is objectionable. To help mitigate the potential noise issue, Michael states, if one side of the solar site were residential and the other side were unoccupied or industrial zoned, placing the sound producing components on the industrial zone side would be beneficial. Michael also states that the second line of the fence would be noise barriers, which to me would be like a berm or something big enough to do that. The second was the site would be a potential fire risk, creating a potential hazardous situation. And I'm not talking about the panels at all. The fire department has provided comments on site access and potential for combustible vegetation. They've requested a clear zone surrounding the fence enclosure of either mowed grass or gravel to facilitate access by firefighting equipment. They also requested a maintenance plan for the vegetation on the site. These are reflected in the March 4th, 2021, page 8 and 9 recommended conditions of approval. Note the applicant has indicated that because the solar field would be a public utility site, fire departments cannot enter the solar site, but instead must fight fires from the perimeter or for containment. What happens if there's a fire and the panels burn? If the fire department cannot enter the facility to put out the fire, I'm talking about from the grass, if it would light, cannot put the fire out and the panels are allowed to burn. What harmful fumes would be at risk for, and what could happen to our groundwater from the fire department using pressurized water to put out the fire in the burning panels? I'm not really sure what's in them, so that's the concern there. Then this washing potentially harmful contaminants into the groundwater. I said, remember, this is only about 50 feet from my uncle's lot line. Then, for any other reason, cause a substantially adverse effect on property values. This one above the rest is a concern for us. While my family has lived in this address in Lisbon, the quarries and asphalt plants have moved in closer to us. We have not complained and have worked with them. We have essentially taken one for the team every day. But at some point, enough is enough. The planner's comments state that the proposal should not have adverse effects on property values. And I am sure that was based on the evidence the applicant presented. In fact, the evidence presented states that the subject property's values actually increased after the solar field was installed. I offer in the evidence a September 29th, 2020 study done by the University of Rhode Island on property value impacts of commercial scale solar energy in Massachusetts and Rhode Island. The study was conducted by an actual university, not appraisers that may have been hired to help with a desired result. The study in no way condemns solar energy. In fact, it promotes it. But it does state one of the consequences of solar fields being constructed is a recorded 7% decrease in property values to residential properties within a 1/10 of a mile of the solar field. For my uncle and myself, I asked again, when have we taken enough for Team Lisbon and Waukesha County? In the plan of recommendations, potential CUP conditions of approval, it is stated such conditions may include, but are not limited to, restrictions on the location of the solar collector system and requirements for the compensation of persons affected by the granting of the permit. F, be inharmonious with the areas to be located. With all the different things that are thrown into a quarry district, I'm not even sure what is considered inharmonious according to the zoning. Definitely a different set of standards than other zoning districts. Staff refers to the reflection off the panels and the lack of screening to the north. I am not sure this is going to be an issue for us. I assume the panels will face south, so reflection for us may not be an issue. One thing that may have not been considered is above our property is an airplane flight lane to Waukesha Airport. We have many low-flying planes that fly over our house and on their way to land at the airport. I have no idea, and I mean zero, if solar panel glare is an issue to an airplane about to land, but has anyone checked with the Waukesha Airport to make sure? Under zoning districts requirements and general provisions, the modules will be classified as accessory structures. Because the definition of accessory structure lists solar collectors as an example, and the fact that the Stark pavement asphalt plants is already the primary use of the site, regulations for accessory structures and uses include the following: a maximum of 2 accessory buildings in any lot, sections 3, sub I, 5, and G. However, the Plan Commission may authorize more under certain circumstances. So depending on how you may look at this proposal, you'd be authorizing at a minimum 55 more accessory structures and maybe up to 7,129 more, if I counted correctly, accessory structures than is permitted in the Q1 district. A maximum limit in total building footprint of 3% of the total lot size. It appears according to the number that the solar farm would occupy about 1/4 of the property. This would exceed the 3% maximum limit by 22% to over 7 times the maximum. How will runoff be handled? I am speaking mainly about snow and snow melt. The panels, I assume, will melt snow on the first sunny day. If the ground is frozen, where will the water run off to? So this was a farm field before where the water and the snow pretty much stayed there until spring. So is there a stormwater management plan? In conclusion, that brings me to my request. For all the reasons I have stated, I would request that discussion only happen on this agenda item tonight and that it be tabled for a decision until these concerns can be addressed. Thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else who wishes to speak on this item? Anyone else?
I'm looking on Zoom, just one moment. I've got Lisa Otis on Zoom.
Yes, Lisa Otis, W220N9359 Town Line Road, Menominee Falls is my mailing address, 53015. Just have a question. I agree that maybe this is really fast to introduce something like this that's really different from what we've dealt with. Do we have some idea of what this is going to look like? I mean, I've seen solar panels on roofs, standing up, on braces, kind of a bracket type thing. I mean, do we know what this kind of looks like? Or can anyone offer some? Okay.
Is the applicant present tonight? This is Rachel.
Yes, he is.
And right now, is the land that these would be placed just empty farm field, or what kind of land? What does it look like at this point? How would it change?
Let's let the public hearing finish and then we'll allow you to address concerns all at once.
All right, anyone else?
Is there anyone else on Zoom who would like to speak?
Okay, if not, I close the public hearing number 1. And do I have to give you a time, Lisa? I mean, Lisa.
I have 6:44.
Okay. Okay, then public hearing number 2 is the conditional use permit request for major grading permit in the Q1 Quarrying zoning district for the applicant Tyson Strankman / Sunvest Solar Inc. on the behalf of owner Hans Dawson / Sussex West Quarry LSP LLC for the property located at North 51 West 24011 Lisbon Road, LSBT 0280.992. Is there anyone here who wishes to talk on this subject?
Is there anyone on Zoom who would like to speak on this? You can click the raise hand button.
No one?
Lisa Otis on Zoom.
Yep, thank you. I'm not sure what the answer was to my questions for Article 1. It seems like I just got cut off on that. On my questions of a general description.
Yes, Lisa, your concerns were noted by the applicant. He's going to address them at the time that his item is called on the agenda.
Okay, but then we've lost the opportunity to comment on it. Because as Joe Osterman said, there's not much information on this, so.
Certainly. So your comment was just noted there in the public hearing as it was in the previous one. You can note it again if you'd like, and then the applicant will have the opportunity to address those concerns at the time that their line item is. Standard procedure for our public hearing.
Will there be a vote on this tonight? Or will it be carried? Will there be an opportunity for the public to speak on it at the next Plan Commission meeting before it's approved or denied?
Don't we have another? We have two. Correct, yes. Lisa, I can't predict what's going to happen moving forward in this meeting. So I would ask you you address your concerns.
Well, if I don't know what the project is, a little more detail on the project, how can I address concerns or perhaps support of the project? That's to me very kind of frustrating to ask for public input before we even have a little more information on it and have questions answered.
Lisa, all of the information is in the packet. Did you review the packet?
I did take a look at it and it's, there's there is information there, but I'm looking for something that's more of a, what's the meat of the issue of this proposal? So.
Yeah, in the packet was the diagram on what it looked like, which was one of your questions earlier. But you do have the ability to review the packet, and then during public hearing, that's your time to ask the questions. And then once we get to the item, then the petitioner will answer those questions and go over their project. Then the board will discuss and make a decision if they're going to move forward or if they're going to postpone
Mhm.
table. So that's in the Plan Commission's hands.
Thank you.
Okay, if no one else wants to speak on this, we're going to close public hearing number 2. And then we will adjourn the public hearings at 6:49?
Correct.
6:50? Okay.
We never had before. All right. We're going to open the regular Plan Commission meeting then at 6:49. We've done roll call. I am back up here. Item 2 then is citizens' comments. Does anyone have anything to state under citizens' comments? Anybody on Zoom? Looks like Lisa's got her hand up.
Lisa, is your hand up for a citizen comment, or is that from the previous public hearing?
You're on mute. Lisa, you're muted.
As far as, hello?
You have to repeat that. You were on mute.
Yeah, I saw that. Someone clicked me off. Just wondering what comments you're looking for.
So citizens' comments is anything that pertains to the agenda tonight.
Mhm.
It's actually not always limited to that, but usually it's anything on the agenda. So if there's anything you'd like to comment on now, this is your chance. After the citizens' comments, all the discussion is up at the board level.
Got it. So I guess that what I'm interested in is are the changes to the 10-year comprehensive land use plan. One of them is just like parkland and open space. You know, I saw that there were a couple of changes. One might be for the better of lowering the minimum acreage, required acreage for a park. But I'm just interested to understand what the opinion of the Plan Commission is as far as direction on the issues of open space and parkland.
So during citizens' comments, it's usually that you would ask questions and we would address them under item agendas. Now, there's nothing agendized for that tonight, Lisa. Why don't we set up a time where, like myself,
Wait. This is on the agenda tonight.
oh,
The
I'm sorry,
changes to the comprehensive 10-year plan.
sorry about that. Yeah, it is. Okay, sorry about that. I jumped right over it. Would you also, Lisa, at some point like to set up a time to go over some of this? Because you've had a bunch of questions on a lot of things that we might be able to help you with outside of the meeting. Kathy and I, I'm sure, could do a Zoom meeting with you or meet in person.
Sure, although, you know, public meeting, public hearing should be, you know, productive, I feel like, but yes, sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely, they should be. It's just, I think some of the confusion on some with the public hearings and such is that there's back and forth. And during public hearings, there is no back and forth once it's in the public side. And it's, I thought maybe some of that we could go over and just, it seems like we're being cruel and harsh at times because we cut people off, but it's the laws that we are governed by and how meetings are supposed to be run why we do that. And I just was.
That town of Lisbon laws, or what laws are we following as far as the procedure for public?
Robert's rules.
meetings?
Oh, Robert's rules.
Mm.
So, and that's what I was thinking we could go over and just explain why we do things the way we do. You may not agree with it afterwards, but at least I could explain it outside.
I'm just trying to effectively communicate and understand things. You know, that's my goal. So if you feel it would be better to have a private conversation, sure, I'm open to that.
It could be more back and forth on things that we couldn't necessarily do during the meeting. And I could answer any questions you might have. And you're welcome to talk to any one of the Plan Commission members or board members at any time. Everybody's usually available too. But I think you got a lot of questions, which I think is great. And you've been involved, which I also think is great. And just some of the things we might not be able to answer always right here at the meeting.
Okay, then I guess it's my mistake for assuming that this is an open forum to obtain that information and have discussions when everyone's present. So sure, we can get together after at some point.
Okay.
If you, Lisa, if you want to call the office, I'd be happy to set up an appointment.
Okay, and who's speaking right now? I can't see that.
This is Kathy, the administrator.
Okay. Just
I'd be
call the
happy
town hall, the town hall. Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
All right. All right, is there any other citizens' comments? Okay, move
No
on.
one else on Zoom has a hand raised.
Thank you. We'll head to the minutes. We have the January 14th, 2021 public hearing and Plan Commission minutes in the packet. Do you have any comments or questions on those minutes? Is there a motion on those minutes?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the Planning Commission minutes from January 14th, 2021 be approved as submitted and written.
Moved by Ed Nelson. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Becky Plotecker. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. The February 11th, 2021 minutes will postpone to the next meeting. Item 4, unfinished business. A, discussion necessary action on resolution 2021-06 related to the proposed 10-year update to the Town of Lisbon Comprehensive Development Plan 2035 as required by Wisconsin Statute 66.1001 and recommendation of the town board of the same.
Last week, or last Plan Commission meeting, the planner went through step by step on every piece of the updated 10-year plan. No additional changes were made other than what was discussed at the meeting. We're asking for your approval.
Right. Lisa had two questions. No, I did not write them down with Catherine. though.
She would like to know the direction the Plan Commission has on open space and common areas.
So I guess it's not really an easy way to answer that question on this one. I guess it depends where it is. And we have a parks plan. And the open space plan, it depends if it's in a subdivision or what the zoning district is. We have embraced the conservation subdivision, which has reduced lot sizes but increased conservation as far as keeping the natural features of the land and such. We are still majority 1 acre lot, and we are overall 1 acre density minimum in pretty much everywhere in the town. Other than that, I don't have a lot that I can add on that. This time, does anyone else have anything?
I was just going to say, Mr. Chairman, I don't have that information with me, but in one of our recent planning commission meetings via the parks, there were 2 maps and quite a comprehensive document from Waukesha County Parks. There's also our recently updated 5-year park program. And the 2 maps, one showed or documented basically the zoning for the town. And the other was, which I thought was quite informative, was current development and most recent development or proposed development. So I'm assuming that, Kathy, that information's available on the town website?
It is, and it wasn't in the packet yet.
Okay, thank you.
Can't get it on Zoom, so Lisa won't be able to.
Was that, it wasn't in our current packet, was it? What we
Yes, it
received?
was
It was?
right here, this packet.
Okay, no. Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
So we didn't put the full county park plan in here because it was, would make this, this packet 200 pages. So
Yeah.
we put in a front page and said where you could obtain the county open space plan. Also, I wanted to make sure I checked with each of the board members or plan commission members. Do you have any concerns about what was discussed in the comp plan packet that was put together by our planner and reviewed at the last meeting? Any additional questions?
I have none. Know that Rachel's overview was very thorough. So,
Mark, anything?
No, and in the past, I know Lisa's expressed that she does not want to see open spaces reduced, especially conservancy areas and some other things. And I don't know about the other plan commissioners, but I share that view as well. And I think that as we look through these developments, one of the things and these proposals, especially things similar to 164 in Silver Spring, look to enhance those open spaces and facilities within the town.
I agree, Mark. Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman, this is Rachel. I could add one quick response to Ms. Otis.
Yeah.
On the question of parks, in the amendments to the comprehensive plan really just serve to reference the fact that the town has a 5-year parks plan. So that was more reflecting current information for Lisbon. It's not actually changing acreages of what parks would be, but it had, the current plan has some funny language about the size for community parks and things that were to be determined by Sewer PAC, the Regional Planning Commission agency, things like that, which it didn't really seem as relevant. So that text was removed just based on the way parks planning is actually done. So it's just trying to reflect the current situation. But to my knowledge, it wouldn't actually have an effect on parkland in the town of Lisbon. I hope that helps.
And this update, like we've talked about in the past, is just, it's a statutory one that we're doing. This is not a all-involved one like we will be doing at some point, which I would imagine would involve workshops and quite a bit. I mean, that one will be extensive when we do that. This
That's
was more of a statutory, well, it was statutory, it's what it was.
Right,
More of
and
It's exactly what it was,
yeah, some small text changes
so.
to get to current status.
But when that time comes, that's gonna be a big overhaul,
That's correct.
so.
So the last page of your packet on the comprehensive development plan is a resolution approving amendments if you so choose.
We'd be looking for a motion then on resolution 2021-06.
I'll make a motion that we adopt resolution 2021/06.
Moved by Becky Poltecker to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Ed Nelson. Any final discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Item B is discussion necessary action on the request by applicant John Then on behalf of Joel Pemberton, Joel's Car Care, for an amended site plan and plan of operation to include outdoor storage for the property located at West 230 North 9515 Colgate Road, tax key LSPT 0149.999.002. This was tabled in January. Hi, John. State your name and address if you would. Flip the switch. I flipped it off.
John Then, W226 N8947 Julian Drive, Sussex.
All right. John or Rachel, you want to start?
Yes, I'd be happy to. So this site plan amendment was brought to the Plan Commission in January, when it almost said February. This is just to approve the addition of outdoor storage for 6 vehicles, if you recall, to the existing site. This would be using area that's currently already paved parking lot. On the slide here from the packets, you can see an aerial photo of the site, at least at one point in time. What's new this month is that the applicant has provided a screening plan that would involve putting a fence along the southern lot line, as well as some trees to be planted in the front yard, which would help screen the not only the storage of the vehicles, but also any outdoor trash enclosures from view from Colgate Road. And so that is included in your packets tonight, as well as some details for the fencing, which would be, if I understand correctly, chain link with some slats. So that would help screen the site from view from both the neighbors and the road. And so this staff memo is largely the same as what you saw a couple of months ago. I'll just point out a couple of changes. I think I put those in red text just so they would jump out a little bit. I added some comments regarding the general zoning code rules in section 3 regarding junk and storage of things on site. That's just noting that those rules are on the books. So should there be a problem with the site or something that you do have language in your zoning code that could apply there. I added language reflecting the new proposal for screening that they submitted, and also language regarding how fences are regulated in your ordinances. So my understanding is that the fence would not require a permit, certainly not a zoning permit, and it appears to comply with the requirements of the town. So it would allow a fence up to 6 feet tall. And as long as it's set back 2 feet from the lot line, that should be complying with your ordinances. And otherwise, the recommended conditions of approval would not be changed at all from the January meeting, but staff felt that this was adequate additional information to bring this back in front of you tonight. And I have up on the slide the new exhibit that was provided for the screening.
Questions from the board?
John, I'm looking at a picture, aerial picture of your site, of your business. And maybe this was discussed at the last meeting, but to the south of your business, there appears to be a concrete pad, and there's another home possibly, or another business. just south of that, there appears to be a driveway that comes in. The fence isn't going to go across that concrete pad, is it? I mean, that's access to, you have two access points, one to the north and one to the south.
Yeah, so the way this started out as, we owned all three properties.
All right,
and sold the house off, and then I did the self-storage development and the auto shop, and then I split those two off. So a condition of, I guess, splitting that auto shop off from the storage units was that we disconnected that driveway. That's in the site plan, or was a recommendation from the town.
okay,
But, so we don't, and the reason that we put, well, that drive around, so it comes around now, so it goes all the way around the auto shop. So you can drive around at 360, so we don't need that driveway anymore.
all right,
So that's disconnected. But,
Okay,
I mean, it's
I'm-
still there, but we don't use it.
all
So
right.
I mean, I was going to put a fence. If the town wants me to, I will. And I guess I would have to, because that would be where he mostly sees the campers, is in that location.
Yeah, that was that's along the 343 feet
Yeah,
back, okay. If I recall, in our discussion, that it seemed to be that the commission was very much in favor of that, putting up a fence on the south side of the property,
correct.
okay? For, to screen in addition, for you asking for the 6 additional parking sites.
Correct.
All right. Was there any further questions or discussions about putting any landscaping materials
So
to
I
the
added,
east?
yeah, I added 12 trees and arborvitae trees all along that.
Okay,
And they're going to be pretty closely spaced together, maybe every 3 to 4 feet. So that should screen I would say about 65% of the whole from the east. But I guess Joe, the auto shop guy in there, he didn't want it fully screened, but he wanted it, I guess Chad recommended he wanted it to look better and maybe have a fence there, but I thought maybe we could kind of come to some compromise and put some nice trees and bushes along there they're going to be up this high anyways.
mhm.
They're going to be higher than a fence would be.
Well, actually, I would, on that east facing, I mean, obviously Colgate Road is no longer a through road. I would
Yeah.
think hopefully they're deer proof. If not.
The ones in my
like-
storage units aren't.
Yeah, they look like, well, whatever.
But you can wrap them up.
Okay. But, and I'm sorry, the fence is going to be 6 or 8 feet,
6
High.
feet.
6 feet high, with slats as was described. Okay,
Correct. Or I could do all arborvitae bushes across there and make them even higher, but if you guys would prefer a fence, I did include the visual for the fence. I text the neighbor and asked him if he'd rather have our, trees and bushes or a fence, and I don't know if he got the message or not. So he didn't text me back.
okay. Well, I don't know how the rest of the commission, obviously I can't speak for all the commissioners, but the arborvitae or various other screening plants on the east side would be fine. And I would go, honestly, looking at the plan with there's quite a few trees in there, unless they're white ash, which would be dead.
Yeah,
I would go with the fence
Okay.
just on the south.
okay.
And, in terms of maintenance, I mean, fences today are much better quality, so I would assume you're looking at least 15, 20 plus years.
Yep.
Easily. I'm done.
I think John took our recommendations into consideration here, went a little, I wouldn't say above and beyond, but he considered both the east and the south sides with the fence and, vegetation up front for screening. My preference would be arborvitae's on the south side as well, probably fit in a little better. I think that this fence is going to look hideous. It's going to look like a fence in the middle of nowhere.
I got 2 quotes the first one was for 10,600 and the second one for 10,800 for a 300-foot fence installed. Not overly excited about that, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
If I have to pay it, I have to pay it.
That's a semi-wooded area, the way it is a little bit.
Okay.
there's gonna be a lot of trees and branches falling if you can look at the aerial there.
Yeah.
That's a wooded,
That.
then I'm gonna have to bust all that concrete up going through there.
Yeah, that's why I
10
was
10
asking
years
about
from
that.
now, that fence is gonna be full of holly vines and overgrown
heavy-
trees.
That's a heavy tree line coming from the east,
Yep,
going along his driveway to the west.
yep.
And I'm just, yeah, I would much rather.
I'm
put
actually pretty
arborvitae's.
familiar with that house to the south of
Okay,
you.
good.
Uh,
And
so-
there's a berm there, so the berm's, it mounds up.
Yeah,
And I honestly think he would be much happier with arborvitae's,
right.
because they're gonna grow a little higher anyways, and his house is a 2-story. So he's gonna be looking right over the top of that 6-foot fence. I mean, I'm up to code on that 6-foot fence, but I think if those arborvitae's are gonna be 8, 10, 12 feet, he's gonna be much happier in the future. I mean, I could make them bigger. I don't have to start out with those little things.
Yeah.
I could put 8-foot arborvitae's in there to make it better than a fence.
Again, you took everything we said into consideration. My preference would be trees on the south side.
Got it.
And not that it matters, but, John said it, he gave the guy the opportunity. Do you want trees or a fence? If the guy didn't get back to you,
Yeah.
you gotta consider that.
He did ask me to leave as much of the tree line in as possible. But if I'm putting a fence in there, I'm gonna have to rip almost all that
Yeah.
out to get it to the 2 feet. And
I'm just
arborvitae's I
looking
can
in the
just put right
future.
in there.
That fence is gonna look horrible.
It's ironic that the park guy is recommending a fence. And you're talking
Well,
about.
I wasn't gonna
trees.
mention it.
John, it was correct me if I'm wrong.
Ed, you didn't even ask the color of the fence.
I
A little
did.
disappointed.
Is it going to be green? Yeah.
Well, let me just wrap up real quick, Ed.
Yeah, sorry.
Sorry.
Go.
I'm gonna recommend that you do vegetation screening,
Oh, perfect.
not the
I'd be
fence.
happy with
That's
that.
my recommendation. Go ahead, Ed.
I can do that myself, with a couple of kids and some shovels.
Yeah,
I got 2 extra kids.
yeah. John, my understanding was that I thought I had heard that a neighbor had recommended or was considering a fence. Is there actually a neighbor living in that home to the south? You just said there was.
Yeah, there is a neighbor there.
Okay. Permanent or rental? Not that it
It's
matters.
not,
It's not pertinent, sorry.
right.
I will quick jump from what I was talking about to, yes, I mean, obviously trees would be better. Arborvitae. But
You
again,
switching?
make them deer proof.
I will.
Becky?
I like the idea of trees, but I don't know if there is any way you can stop the deer from eating
Yeah,
them. They
I
look
know.
like lollipops.
They
I can
do.
attest to that.
Yeah.
You can wrap them in burlap.
Right, right, during the winter,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, I think that, I would go with the trees instead of a fence.
Mark?
I'm generally in favor of the trees. I don't like the way that particular fence looks at all, but the question then is what happens by the driveway? Or how far to the east are these trees gonna go?
I'm gonna run them all the way from the east property line, just all the way. So I'm gonna put them exactly the same place that fence was gonna go. And then I can stock cut across that concrete. And I can just get a small excavator, mini X, and then just put topsoil in there and go down 4 or 5 feet and plant them right across that.
Yeah, I think that something growing would be way better than the fence. Both because I think you're right. I think the neighbor would appreciate a taller screen. And I just think it'd look way better.
Good, perfect.
All right. Any other discussion? No? Is there a motion then on item B?
I would move that the request by applicant Joe
John?
Then on behalf of Joel Pemberton / Joe's Car Care for the amended SPP 00 to include outdoor storage for the property located at West 230 North 9515 Colgate Road, tax key number 0149.999.002 be approved as presented, with special emphasis of trees planted on the south and east side of said enclosure or property.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Chad. Does that cover everything we need?
Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you, John.
Good luck with the planting, John.
Any final discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. And Becky, you're going to be on again.
Okay, new business. A is discussion and necessary action on the request by applicant Tyson Strankman / Sunvest Solar Inc. on behalf of owner Hans Dawson / Sussex West Quarry LSP LLC for the properties located at North 51 West 24011 Lisbon Road, LSBT 0280.992 and North 51 West 24073 Lisbon Road, LSBT 0280.999 in the Q1 quarrying zoning district for the following. One is amendment to site plan and plan of operation. Do you want to do these all at once or just the one? Start with just.
Rachel? You want to go over the amendment to the site plan of operation?
Yes, I can do that. I guess I was wondering if when it comes time to take action, for what it's worth, my recommendation would be to take up the conditional use first for the solar and then the site plan, but I'd be happy to present the site plan just because that would review their proposal.
Sounds good.
Okay. So it's the applicants, Sunvest Solar are proposing, they're working proposing to install a solar farm or a series of panels. This would be about a 9.5 acre installation on what is currently I believe it's a 44 acre parcel. This is part of the larger holdings of the Land and Stone Quarry operation. This has been mentioned during the public hearings. In the packet, you can see context maps here. So we have an aerial photo showing the site. This would be located on just one parcel. It's kind of a flag-shaped parcel here. It's got currently, and I don't recall if it's currently cropped or not, but my understanding is it maybe has been in the past, but it's sort of an upland clearing area. There's areas that are wooded, sort of surrounding the site. Also has some wetlands and environmental corridor, but the solar installation is proposed in sort of the open, more clearing area. It's a high point on the site. This, as is also mentioned in the public hearing, this would be proposed as a conditional use that's unspecified just because the current zoning code does not really speak to solar other than where it does mention solar, it is sort of assume that it's sort of panels placed on a home or a building, a smaller scale type of operation, not so much a public utility facility, which this would be the latter. Materials in the packet, I did note, yes, certain things were received March 1st. We did receive materials on February 17th. I probably should have listed that in the staff memo that they were received, and several of these items were modified as we went back to the applicants and asked for more information, some revised materials, and they provided that, but a little closer to the meeting date. I would note that they've also done a wetland investigation report that was provided to the town. We provided the wetland map in the packets just because that's kind of the key end result, but the town does have access to a larger report and other specification sheets for the mechanical fixtures on site. Those things were not all included in the packet, but we tried to present what would be enough information without, filling the packet with things that might not be relevant to a zoning review and discussion. I would also note that a major grading permit is required for this. So this project does require conditional use, site plan amendment, and major grading due to the amount of earthwork, which we can speak to that a little bit later. But the gist of the proposal, this would be owned and operated. the solar farm by We Energies. I guess they're proposing a 30-year lease on this property for the 9.4 acres. So Sunvest would be installing it and maintaining it, is my understanding based on discussion with the applicant. But We Energies would be the owner of the solar facility, and the energy that's produced would be fed back to We Energies and their local grid. So this is part of a general trend towards more distributed energy generating facilities. They're trying to put these closer to end users. I guess there's several of these that have been installed in the area, and perhaps the applicant could speak to that as well. But he told us of several facilities that have gone in other communities somewhat recently. This would be about over 7,100 solar panel modules within this 9.5 acre site. This would be a fenced enclosure, and it would be, you can kind of see in the aerials here, and I have some information on slides as well, if we need to clarify kind of how this site would work. But if you recall, it's Stark Asphalt Corporation has their facility here, and just last year they came to the town for approval to expand that. So what you see in the aerials, they have actually obtained approval already for twice the size asphalt plant, plus a berm along the western edge that would help buffer that plant from the adjacent residential properties. This site, as was mentioned, is zoned Q1 quarrying district primarily. However, there is also upland corridor on the western edge and C1 conservancy throughout the south and western edges of the parcel. So those are the areas that really track with the woods and wetlands that were identified on site. And that's reflected in the current zoning. Long-term, your comprehensive plan has this planned as future extraction or extractive use. So that's of course in line with a quarry operation and similar types of land uses. But the surrounding areas that are wooded are planned for a primary environmental corridor. So those would be planned to remain. The staff memo also notes, surrounding lands, what the zoning is. There is residential. This is also abutting to the south, the city of Pewaukee. And hours of operation. So this is, different from other site plans that we review, is just an unusual type of proposal, although it's not an unusual thing to propose a solar field. It's not something we see every day in Lisbon. So there are no specific hours of operation. The applicant says that they would mow the site about twice a year, 4 hours each visit, no full-time employees, maybe one part-time. So it's not something that would generate a lot of traffic. It's supposed to be really just installed and kind of working on site, is my understanding, without many people coming or going, unless there are issues or need for maintenance. No outdoor lighting is proposed. I did have a question. I would like to just ask if any of the equipment would have lights on it. I know that's not proposed as active, lighting for the site, but if there would be any chance of lighting during the dark hours, that's something I don't know that I discussed with the applicant. We note that there are no storm surface water drainage facilities on site and none are proposed. We can discuss tonight. I don't know that that would necessarily be needed here, but the facility would be subject to, again, a grading permit. Staff is recommending an erosion control plan based on the earthwork that would be needed to install, like trenching for the utilities, and they would be extending a driveway. So on this slide here and in the packets, you can kind of see an outline of the Stark asphalt plant that comes down into this parcel that kind of straddles two parcels, but this would be extending a driveway from the driveway currently used by Stark's plant, and that would be used to access this site. And I have asked the applicant for more information regarding how traffic would be coming and going. I think that is relevant to the review of the conditional use. And my understanding is they would have had a meeting maybe last week with the owners and operators of the Stark facility, and we're going to provide an update based on that, because I think it's important to understand how this would relate to the Stark site, because when we reviewed the Stark site plan of operation, there was no assumption that traffic would ever be going through that site to another user on the parcel. So I don't think we really even discussed how their driveways and routes would work at the Stark site. It was just considered to be all a stockpiling and asphalt production area. So for my part, I'm really not clear on where exactly traffic would go. The applicant has said it would be along the eastern driveway, but I think it would be helpful for that discussion to be had tonight in front of the commission, and especially for those who have more local knowledge of these properties. A note in here, there's no county shoreline zoning review required. No outdoor storage or trash, anything like that is proposed. Staff did review this, so the town has general requirements for conditional use. Those are noted in the staff report, and we talk about those every time we have a conditional use permit. So I think those are very, helpful, at least to give us a sense of what we should be focused on as far as impacts to other properties, things of that nature. But also there are Wisconsin state statutes that apply to wind and solar energy facilities, and so staff was aware of those. I worked with the town attorney to make sure that we're accounting for those state laws to the extent that they, interact with local laws, and that we're not running afoul of any state rules in our review and recommendations. So those are also commented on in the report. I did run through, so as far as the site plan, so I'm just skipping ahead to that piece of it. So you can see on here how the panels would lay out. These maps are included in your packets. I did check it against the Q1 zoning district requirements. There wasn't much there that would apply here, but it does require a 50-foot setback for structures from a front lot line. And so that's what they're proposing here is, I believe, exactly 50 feet. It would have minimum 20-foot offsets from other lines. That's what the district would require. This has larger offsets than that from your side and rear lot lines. There's a 75-foot shore setback from things like navigable waters and wetlands. And based on the delineation they had done and known conditions on the remainder of the property, I believe that they would be providing at least that 75-foot setback. So I did not see that as a concern regarding the regulatory setbacks. It was already noted that this would kind of be considered accessory structures, I think, based on the language in your current zoning code. But of course, with a maximum of 2 normally, it's just an atypical type of facility. So that's kind of my technical interpretation of the ordinance for what that's worth. But if the Plan Commission sees fit to approve this at this location, you have the ability to do that within your zoning rules. I discussed parking. There is a small parking area proposed as an extension of that driveway. And that I think would be adequate, again, based on the fact that they would have hardly any employee traffic, certainly no other customer or other traffic. I talked about site access, and you can see in the staff recommendations, we think that some kind of documentation about how emergency vehicles would enter and exit the site would get there in the event of an emergency would be very important. Fire department was also consulted, and they had comments on site access and the potential for combustible vegetation, because the applicant did indicate they are proposing pollinator plants to be part of the facility. I haven't seen exactly how that would work, or maybe pictures there could be helpful if people are curious to see what the end result would look like, because the pictures that they did provide seem a little bit like the site isn't fully finished and established again as far as vegetation. So it looks more like a freshly constructed solar farm based on what's in the packet. But fire department did request that some kind of clear zone surrounds the fenced enclosure that could be either grass or gravel to facilitate access by firefighting equipment around, surrounding the fenced enclosure. And also a maintenance plan for vegetation on the site. Again, thinking that longer vegetation or other types with a facility like this, there could be more potential for fire. So I would ask the applicant to work with fire department on that piece, as well as town staff. And the only other comments, we'll deal with the major grading under that section. The security fencing, also the comment here, that would meet the ordinance. It allows fencing up to 10 feet tall. And that would be open type construction. I think that is what is proposed here. And seeing if I have other slides that are relevant. In the packet also, this is a little bit, I know you have several plan sheets in here, but your sheet D 1.00, that's in the main plan set, and then in a specifications or for construction plan set, also includes a sheet SG 301, and that shows a profile view of what this equipment would look like on the ground, kind of from the side. It indicates that this would be about 8 feet 7 inches at maximum height. Based on discussion with the applicant, that's also, I believe he said that's the maximum height that these would be at. So when they're tilted, although they are adjustable to some degree, but you're talking, more than 8 feet, approaching 9 feet in height total for this equipment. And I have other, for the slides, for what that's worth, if we get into the access and how it relates to the Stark asphalt plant, I have a couple of slides showing what was approved and what that might look like, because the applicant didn't have access, I don't think, to a plan that showed, Stark's proposed expanded facility. And I'm actually have not had a chance to verify the current extent of Stark's operation, if they've already fully expanded to that extent or not. So perhaps somebody at the meeting tonight could also help clarify that. And there are several recommended conditions of approval also in the staff memo for the site plan if the plan commission were ready. And of course, those could be modified as well based on the discussion and public hearing tonight. If you have questions, I'm happy to try to answer them.
Okay, do you want to, Kathy, talk about all three at a time, or do we do one at a time?
I think our best bet would be to hear from the petitioner to answer the questions that were discussed. So then the board can discuss amongst themselves.
Sir, could you come forward? Are you Mr. Trankman?
I am.
Okay. Okay, first, one of our residents asked about what this looked like. Do you have a website that maybe you could give us that we could go to and see what the actual solar field would look like?
Sure. We do have a website, sunvest.com. We have drone photos of.
Oh, you have them on yours? Okay.
Yeah, and there's the picture right there, one that we just finished. We haven't finished completing the reseeding or, we do a no.
Excuse me, can you have them turn on that microphone so I can hear them?
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, we do a low-mow grass after this point. So we plant that underneath the array, and then around the border, the fence area, we put native pollinator plants for like bee habitat. So, but we do have a lot more pictures on our website, or I can send some over and provide that, that show kind of aerial shots as well as projects that are more done. We've done similar projects like that in the last year and a half, probably 12 similar to this in the area right around here, for Delafield, the Delahart wastewater plant, UW Parkside, Washington County. We did one for in West Bend, City of Milwaukee. We're just finishing one right now by the airport. Harley Davidson, 4 New Berlin schools. We have about 20 actually that we've done with We Energies in the last year and a half that are similar to this, right around this area.
Okay, all right. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Stankman?
Yeah, I'll start. How many kilowatts is this projected for?
This is 2,250 kilowatts AC, so it's almost 3,000 kilowatts DC.
As stated earlier, we kind of got all this information late. I did have a minute to look on your website.
Sure.
On your website, I only found a site in New Richmond, Wisconsin, and River Falls, Wisconsin.
Okay.
Both of them are, the New Richmond was 250 kilowatts,
Mhm.
and the River Falls was 252 kilowatts. And you're proposing a 3,000 kilowatt
Sure. Yeah.
area here. How do you guys calculate that size or requirements for that? I'm curious on how, this is massive,
Sure.
and I'm wondering how you got to that size. Or
So this is,
calculated requirements you go by?
yeah, I mean, basically for this program, we are doing it with We Energies. So it's kind of a program they started called Solar Now, where they capped it at this size. So we've done this exact size in the last year. We've done 7 of them this size, I think. And that was
Okay.
some of the ones I listed for UW Parkside, for Washington County in West Bend. We did one. at the city, for the city of Milwaukee, right next to the main airport there on a landfill. So this is the max size, but
Okay.
we have done a bunch more for re-energies that range from 500 kilowatts to this size.
Okay. And I'm not against this at all, but it intrigues me.
Sure.
And I would be, I would like to set up an appointment or something to go see another site.
Absolutely.
Likewise of this. What is the time frame of install?
It's, depending on weather this time of year, you know, obviously, but 90 to 120 days. Depending on weather, you know, in the middle of summer, it's 90 days.
Okay. And then to get more specific on this site, as mentioned, there's concern about some of the closer homes to this.
Sure.
And according to these plans, you went off the north property line, which is where them homes are,
Mhm.
and you went the minimal 50-foot minimum setback.
Sure.
There's plenty of property behind that. Is there a reason why you didn't carry that farther to the south?
It was setbacks from the conservation area was the limiting factor on moving it farther south. We had a certain setback from that conservation area, and that was kind of dictating the shape and where we put the array.
Okay,
And there's some wetland areas in the south end too
okay,
that we're avoiding, obviously.
okay. And then just curious, my last question, due to the noise, 120 hertz is fairly low.
Mhm.
It can get annoying if it's loud though.
Mhm.
You start moving up into the 480 hertz, that's pretty high pitched.
Sure.
Again, I'm not familiar with these.
Mhm.
I do have concerns though. I hope you
Sure,
can
I mean,
appreciate
based
that.
on, oh, sorry,
Um,
go ahead.
So my question is, that noise, I'm assuming is coming from probably the inverter area, correct?
Yeah, I
Okay.
mean, if there is noise, we haven't noticed any noise.
You
like,
haven't? Okay.
no. It's a hum, it's a
Yeah.
small hum, like maybe you know,
Yeah.
I mean, based on where it is, it's centrally located, and the properties are to the north. And there's a giant asphalt plant right there. I don't see,
I don't
any
know if you
sound
guys-
ever leaving.
That's 120 hertz. You guys can hear that.
But that's on a microphone, but yeah. Yeah, and based on where we put it, I mean, there is very little chance that you're gonna hear it
Okay,
if you're not on that property. I mean,
Alright.
we're kind of centrally located in that, and
Yep.
the hum is like a transformer. I don't know if you've ever been around a normal electrical transformer,
I
those
have.
green boxes, yeah. So that's basically what you're gonna hear, the hum of like a transformer, but unless you're within 30 feet of it, you're not gonna hear it, especially when you're adjacent to, an asphalt plant. And that's
Right.
only during the daytime hours when the sun's out, right? At night, it's not even operating. It turns off automatically. So,
okay. That's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Sure.
Ed?
Thank you, Chad. Okay. The inverter, is there a large cable that connects to that feeds off the solar farm out to Lisbon Road, I assume? I mean,
So-
from the standpoint of the wattage that's being generated?
Yep. There's a transformer and a primary, which is the main line for the utility that is already located on the Stark plant. And We Energies would be coming out of that transformer and extending the primary down to right next to our little pad there where the service is, and they'll put a transformer inside of the fence there.
Okay,
So that will come straight south from basically the plant, straight south down the east property line kind of, and then straight west over to the transformer, and they were gonna bore that
okay,
in.
to the field. Our planner mentioned egress or access to the site. I can see a road that comes off of Lisbon Road that, excuse me, goes into the asphalt plant. I'm assuming that to enter to the site, and the initial obviously the construction phase is going to be the busiest phase of this, if this
You're correct,
happens.
yeah,
After that, it's going to be minimal.
exactly.
Are we coming down the east side of the asphalt plant site that I'm looking at?
Yep, we would use the same access that they use, which has been discussed with Stark already, in our meeting here earlier this week. you know, if we move forward, that would be the plan. And we would just use the same road they use to access that kind of tracking pad or whatever you want to call that southern parking lot. So during the construction, you know, there will be obviously, you know, a couple crews on site, but after that point, it will be the low mow grass will get mowed, you know, around twice a year. And once a year, there will be a preventative maintenance check by an electrician to walk around and visually inspect it and check for any issues. But that will be the only traffic on the site.
Okay. Obviously, our commissioner and homeowner raised a lot of important issues. Before I would get our further questions, it's interesting because you mentioned pollinator plants. Obviously, the site has to be somewhat maintained. Then there's the issue with the fire department and the possibility of grass fire. If you plant pollinator plants and you cut them, it negates the whole purpose, correct? Yes.
Oh, we wouldn't, yeah. That's
know what
why
I'm
we're
saying?
only doing those around the edges.
All right.
Because we don't want them to grow up and shade the array.
No, yeah. Are we talking short grass prairie or, because obviously you couldn't do tall grass.
Exactly. Yeah, in the array itself, in between the rows and underneath, we would, we work with a prairie specialist in the area that knows like what seed mixes will work depending on the soil and where we're at. And they design a special seed mix of a low grass mix inside that is native to this area.
Okay.
So it will just be maintenance, you know.
Is there
very
another
low
local one
maintenance.
where the vegetation is established already? West Bend or Delafield?
West Bend, you know, it is growing, yeah. I mean, it's definitely established in there, but there was other stuff that was in there that is kind of fighting with what we planted. So the prairie specialist said after 3 years, it will be fully established, but you can go look at that site. It does have, it had alfalfa in the farm field. It's right in downtown, well, you know, it's right off Main Street in West Bend, so you can go look at it.
33 or?
Yeah, it's one block off 33 on River and Creek.
Yep.
It's right behind, it's for the Washington County, it was their land, and it's right behind their highway maintenance building, basically. It was just an alfalfa field that was farmed before that. So that is the alfalfa that's competing with it a little bit, but after a few years, you know, we won't have to mow it as much. Right now, we're mowing it like 3 or 4 times a year instead of, you know, last year we did. So we installed that, finished it last winter, so.
Yeah, thank you, Chad. That was an interesting point because basically, I was thinking of, okay, if we're cutting I mean, lawns are ecological deserts.
Sure.
As you know, we have way too much grass in the town of Lisbon. Way too much. From the standpoint of concern about insects, et cetera. From the standpoint of questions that were raised earlier by a member of this board and a homeowner, the panels would face south. I personally do not know how that would affect if it is on a flight path, but it would be logical because the Waukesha County Airport is just south of us approximately. From this site, probably about maybe 8 to 10 miles, just the other side of obviously on the I-94 corridor. You've addressed the issue of the inverter and the noise. The fence, I assume, would be, would have slats, so it would be like a privacy fence, or are we just talking about a regular
It would just be a regular chain link, 6 feet.
chain link fence?
Yeah,
Okay.
correct.
Boy, those things are. Anyway, from the standpoint of, would there be any consideration? I know there's a berm to the west of the asphalt plant. And I see there's 1, 2, 3 properties that touch the northwest corner of the site. Would there be any chance of putting a small berm up there to mitigate any noise? If the commission would agree.
Yeah, I mean, we could explore that if that's something. I think the noise from that distance is is very, not going to be noticeable, especially with what else is around that area. I'm sure the road right in front of the house is more noise than this will ever cause, but I mean, that's something we could explore if that's something you guys want.
Well, to be fair to you, Lisbon Road has become a major transport corridor and carries a tremendous amount of truck and car traffic. It's a nightmare to pull out onto that road. I think, for the few times that I have to. All right. No further questions at this time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I just have a couple questions. Have you ever had a fire at one of these or heard of a fire at any of these solar farms?
We have not had any fires. I mean, it's electrical, so I'm sure there's a possibility, but these inverters nowadays have a bunch of safety features for arc faulting, or they're very sensitive. So any kind of spark or arc fault is going to shut it down immediately, as far as the inverter in
Okay.
production. So there's no way to say that there's never going to be a fire, but the codes now with this kind of system are very strict and require certain preventative safety features, I guess, on the inverters. So they shut down if there's any faults or anything,
Okay.
on the circuits.
And you said you're going to come in through Stark, and I'm sorry, did you say you're going to come along the east side of the property?
So basically, after going there and talking to them, they don't care which way we go,
Okay.
but it's kind of the natural flow of traffic to come in and then come down the west side to our.
Oh, come down the west
to
side,
our,
okay.
and
That's,
then there's also a road on the east side. there
okay,
too.
and that's
So-
where I see your driveway comes
Yeah,
on the
and that's
west
our
side.
little, it's a gravel extension basically, and there's no road that they have in there. It's just a big gravel area that's huge, that whole area is basically, looks like recycled asphalt or something that they poured in there. So that's basically what it is. And we would just pour gravel or do a gravel road, right off the end of that, basically.
Okay, and your fence, did I read it was going to be 8 feet high?
Just 6 feet.
6 feet, okay. And the vegetation goes around the property inside, right inside the fence?
Correct. There's like a 15-foot setback around inside of the fence.
Okay.
All the way around. And so we typically do the pollinators in that because then we, if they grow a little higher and we're not going to cut them, so they go to flower, obviously. So that's why we plant them there. We don't want to plant them within the array because it might shade. So we do 2 different mixes, one around the edge to make it look better and also for pollinator habitat.
Okay, you said that you have a site in West Bend,
Correct.
in downtown West Bend? or-
It's like 2 blocks off of 33 in West Bend. Yeah.
Have you had any complaints about the noise or anything from there?
No.
Okay, I guess that's all I have right now. This is something new to me, so.
Sure.
Mark, do you have anything?
Yeah, I got a couple things.
Okay,
Sorry. So I didn't see any kind of a stormwater management plan in the packet. Is there going to be one?
We're not asked to put one together and we've never had to do that before, but we're willing to do whatever we need to do. Typically, I know he was talking about all the snow melting all at once, but typically when the sun hits the modules, it creates a little film of and the snow just slides right off. It doesn't all melt. It slides off and it'll pile up in front of each row. So it doesn't just totally melt off and drain away really quickly or anything. So it doesn't really alter the way the ground drains away or how fast the snow melts. And we're not changing anything, in the field. It's staying the soil that it is now. We're not paving or adding any concrete of any type. So typically we haven't been required to do that, but it doesn't mean that, if you guys want it, we can't do that.
I see Mitch put his hand up. I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, Mark, I just wanted to address that question regarding the stormwater facility. So with, I actually called around a little bit and I also talked with West Bend city staff. what we look at is what's below those panels. And with them maintaining, I guess, a vegetated surface, and then also because they're not changing the direction of any of the stormwater flow through the site, every place that I've called really has not required them to do any type of stormwater management. I did reach out to Waukesha County. One of our recommendations within tonight's conditions or recommendations would be to get a permit, a grading permit from Waukesha County. When talking with Alan Burrows, he had mentioned that even though it may not be required, it might not be a bad idea to have some type of I guess, stormwater facility, not necessarily a facility that would be doing any treatment, but something that might help with the direction of that water should it be an issue in the future. So this will have to get kicked to the county for them to take a look for a grading permit through them as well. So, but every place else I've talked to, nobody else has required the stormwater facilities, not a full-blown stormwater plan or anything like that.
Okay. It sounds all right. It just, when we're talking about a major grading permit here and they're going to be changing something in order to put these panels in at a fairly level, I think. And I just wanted to make sure that we were okay with where that water is going to continue to go where it goes now, and we won't end up like we were in some areas of the town years ago with huge problems with water running where it never went before.
Sure, yeah, that makes sense. The major grading permit was required because of our trench that is running down the center of the array in that road, and that will be where the conduit is running, the electrical conduit. So because of the 2-foot depth in that, it didn't exceed the square footage, but it exceeded the volume because we were digging down 2 feet deep in that.
Right.
That 772 feet, 2 feet wide, 2 feet deep. So we exceeded the volume, and that's why we need the grading. Instead of the minor, we needed the major grading one because of that volume.
So you talked about your planting, your vegetation, and your maintenance plan. I didn't see, I saw a reference to that, and that you'd probably be mowing a couple times a year. And I just wanted to ask Rachel and make sure that we have enough on that so that down the road that maintenance can be enforced.
Yeah, I think the contents of the maintenance plan, since we don't have one in front of us yet, but that is recommended, I think that should spell out in a little more detail, where the plantings would be, how they would be maintained. I think it's good information to understand better where the pollinator plantings would be. So what the applicant has described tonight was helpful to me.
Right.
And especially if the commission decides to table action tonight, that would give more time. Potentially we could have that in the packets, at a future meeting, unless you wanted that to be handled at the staff and, legal counsel level, fire department.
Okay. So going on to the fire department access just for a minute here. In the packet, there's, and from discussions tonight, there seems to be 2 points of view, and I'm wondering where the applicant is on this one. Is the fire department going to have access and fight fires in this thing or not?
Typically, they told us they would not go in there. They would fight it and contain it because it's a fire with electricity, and they don't want to put their guys in there, so they would just contain it, which means leaving access around the outside of the fence. And that's what we have seen in dealing with fire departments and other projects.
Yeah, no, that's fine. It makes sense. I don't know if there's a short answer to this or not, but is there a benefit to Lisbon, Sussex, Pewaukee, this immediate area, from having this site here? I just want to say generally that it's very irksome to me when everybody wants to talk on their cell phone, but nobody wants to have a cell tower anywhere near them. So I want to try and, I'm very unfamiliar with this, and it's really hard to get up to speed in 4 or 5 days of part-time reading. But is there a benefit to this being here for us that live nearby? And how efficient is solar in Wisconsin? I mean, apparently it's going to make a decent amount of electricity.
Yeah, it's, I mean, basically this will be fed back onto the grid. So we'll be feeding clean power to the grid for anyone in the area to buy, you know. Also, this kind of program is set forth by We Energies so that they can produce the power where it's used instead of, you know, running a bunch more transmission lines and adding more to their infrastructure. Their ability to produce it where it's used makes it so they don't have to, you know, run new lines, new overhead power lines or whatever to extend their capacity outside of where they're centrally producing it now, you know. So basically, yeah, and it's very efficient in Wisconsin. I mean, obviously there's places where there's more sun, but yeah, it's really taking off here, and it's a good investment for homeowners or for customers as well. The return on investment's good right now.
I didn't see any batteries in the installation plans for now. Is there any plans for putting batteries on this site in the future to store energy for overnight use, or?
Nope, this one just is going to feed it onto the grid. There's no usage at all on site, or it's not designed at all to be able to have storage.
Same question about mirrors. I've seen some of these farms where they install mirrors to try and increase the amount of sunlight on the panels. Are you going to have any mirrors here?
No mirrors.
Can you, I don't know if you'll be able to speak to this or not, but how does your 30-year lease play into when Lannon believes they're going to start quarrying this area?
Well, according to them, they're like 50 years out on that and needing to get in there. But I think there's a buyout option in the contract. If they were to want to get out of the contract, they could buy out for the, you know, value of a third party puts on the system at that point.
Okay, so they're not planning on using it for 30 years, but they could get back in there sooner.
They said they weren't planning on it, but I do think the contract has a buyout. I don't know what that is exactly, but yeah, they told us that they weren't planning on quarrying that in 30 years, and that's why they are interested in this project.
I guess I just have a couple of last comments. And one of them is, I think it would be great to be able to take a look at the West Bend site and just see these inverters once for myself. And actually, I would really like to do that before I vote on this. And part of my thought process here is I'd be okay with your plan here. I think if you said there will be no inverter noise at the fence line, and we agree to turn off the system until the noise is gone, if there is. I mean, 50 feet is pretty darn close to a lot line for, you know, something that could be more than a little annoying. And I know there's also, you know, I don't know, but I read in the last couple of days that there are, of course, different quality of inverters, some of which make a lot more noise than others. And the same thing with transfers. So I guess, in short, the question would be, would you be okay? Are you confident enough in your system with saying that if our inverters can be heard beyond the fence line, we'll turn them off until we fix them?
Yeah, I'm confident that anywhere off of this property you will not be able to hear the inverters, definitely. And, you know, there's 50-foot setback to the fence, but there's also, you know, about, I don't know how many 100 feet to where the inverters are. They're centrally located. That's part of the reason we put them there. So that would give us an extra buffer, you know. It's centrally located because it works good for wiring it, but it's also good to group everything together. And
Well, I was going to ask you that, knowing that there's residences to the west, why they weren't pushed all the way to the east side of that field, but I think you just answered that question.
sure, a lot of it is design and voltage drop on our system. We have to have certain limitations on how far we run stuff. So that is why it's centrally located, but also to kind of give us a buffer all the way around.
So what about this, the other thing I wanted to ask you too is this, I know you guys supplied information that there was no drop in property values, but I read a different study, the one that the neighbor referenced, that there was somewhere between a 7 and 1.7% drop in property value as soon as one of these things goes in. Is there anything, I mean, I don't know that the town would want to require you to make some kind of a reimbursement to people, but I don't know that I wouldn't either. I mean, it's really hard coming from my side of this to in the last 5 days try to determine which of these positions is more accurate, more sustainable than the other. One says, oh no, the property value is going up, and the next one says, nope, the property's going down. If you're within a half mile, it may be 7%, and if you're within a mile, it's going to be 1.7%. Where are you on offering something to these neighbors that live close to this thing?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen all kinds of studies as well. I feel like this is not at all visible from the road, and I would say with the woods around the edges that it's going to be hard to even see it from the adjacent properties. So that's not, I mean, I have no authority to offer any money to anyone, so I don't know where that would go, but yeah, I'm confident that based on where it is located and surrounded by wooded conservation areas, and wooded tree lines along the west as well, that it's going to be barely noticeable, unless you're on that property.
Right. What happens about glint or glare if there is a problem at the airport or something else because of a flight path?
Sure, yeah, we run every project that we do that is within a certain distance from the airport. We have to run through FAA, like the one we just finished at the Milwaukee airport. And this one's well outside of the requirements to get FAA approval as far as getting close to the airport.
Okay. And then last but not least, by any means, the quarries all have a reclamation plan. And from what I read, there's a number of communities around the country that are requiring the reclamation of these sites be paid for up front, so that if they're just abandoned or anything else happens, that this equipment and these hazardous materials that are in these panels can actually be removed instead of just left to sit and decay. You may have a better situation here than a lot of places because of the quarry and their future use of this, but the only thing certain is change. And if quarrying becomes untenable for some reason and they decide they're not going to quarry that for who knows what reason, I want to make sure we can get this out. So, I mean, I'm suggesting to the rest of the Plan Commission that we require some sort of a reclamation plan for both the land as well as removal of these panels, and that be either bonded or somehow or another paid for up front. So we don't have a situation down the road where 2 or 3 owners later somebody says, well, that's nice, but we're bankrupt, and walks away from this thing, and we're sitting there with all these solar panels and what could be a field that was farmed, or a subdivision that was developed, or anything else that might happen. I think that's not real likely, but I don't see a good reason to just ignore it.
Well, with this project, it's under lease, so the We Energies is bound by the lease to remove it at the end of the lease when it's over. And I feel pretty confident that they're going to be around for a while. So I think, I think legally they're bound by that already, by the lease. So if that holds any weight with you guys.
Well, and I guess the other thing is, and this is a zero cost item for you, but as part of this CUP, I would like to see that we get a letter from Land and Stone, or an agreement, and our attorney would be the right one to say how this should happen, but I would want something that I don't think they'll have any objection to, but I would want them to say that this installation will have no effect whatsoever on the reclamation of the quarry at the end of this process. So that, again, we don't end up with something that they decide isn't able to be reclaimed because of whatever reason having to do with this. We hold them to reclaiming those quarry lands, and I don't want this to get in the way of us being able to do that.
Sure, that makes sense. Yeah, we can reach out to them for sure and get them to send you something over.
So having said all that, I would be in favor of pending this for a month and give us some time if anybody else wants to go and take a look at this West Bend facility. I know I would, but I'd like to do a little more research and reading on this too, and see where I'm actually at here.
Becky, is it all right for me to go through some questions that I have as well?
Sure.
Okay, so you named the city of Delafield as one of your clients. Can you tell me what size the city of Delafield is?
The city of Delafield is, I believe it's around 200 kilowatts.
Okay. And the site in West Bend or the city of Milwaukee, which are somewhat equivalent in size?
They're exactly the same size.
Okay.
Yes.
Are you going to be using the exact same panels that you're going to be using and equipment?
Yep.
Transformers?
All the
So-
racking and the inverters and everything will be identical. Yep.
And from West Bend and the city of Milwaukee, West Bend has been around the longest?
Yep. That was one of our first large ones that we did.
And that was just completed last December or the
It was
winter?
completed in December of over a year and 4 months ago.
Okay, December of 19.
Yeah.
Okay. So can you tell me what the panels are made out of?
They're glass on the front with aluminum frames, and then there's silicon wafers in them.
Okay, and do you have any cut sheets on the panels themselves that would give us an understanding of what their burn ratio would be, these silicone?
The silicone itself is not flammable, and the
Okay,
glass
I know
isn't
glass
either.
isn't, and the,
And the aluminum isn't. It's just there's a back sheet that's a plastic back sheet, but that would be the only thing that would be flammable.
okay.
The racking is all, steel.
With this large field, do you see any concerns with the electric, with it messing with the electric in the houses that are so close?
No, definitely not. No.
So you've not had any kind of experience with any of your fields that have bothered any of your neighbors' electricity or ability for cell the ability to get their cell usage?
No.
Okay. Um, A lot of people went through all my answers, questions, so I don't want to redo them. You mentioned a lease with We Energies, stating that after the lease was over, that they were going to remove the panels and would you be willing to share that with us?
Sure. Yeah.
So then we know that that's, so
I
we have
could,
it
I
on
mean,
file?
Yeah, it's not my legal document, but I'm sure we can get you a copy. Yeah.
Okay,
I just have to talk to We Energies and
right. And
and the
you
customer.
stated that this was the maximum size that's allowed. Would there be any consideration for reducing it by 50 feet from that property line of those neighbors? Right now, you're only 50 feet. Would you be willing to reduce it a bit to make it more palatable for neighbors?
Yeah, I mean, I was under the assumption we were following all the requirements, but I mean, we could
Just-
explore that. Yeah.
Just trying to give you some way to work with the neighbors, that's all.
Sure. Yeah.
You stated that you were going to be going through Stark's property to come through. How are you going to keep that lane from the road to the back clear? Because if Stark has their equipment sitting in that roadway, when we have fire trucks that need to get through, we don't have time to ask them to move their vehicles. Do you have something that states that that lane will always, at all times, be clear of any vehicles or structures? And if not, could you get something?
Yeah, I could look and see. I know they are required to give access to the property, but I don't know how that's stated. So yeah, I would have to look into that.
I believe that's all my questions. I did get that we are looking for detail from plantings. I've heard from the board that or the commission that would like to do some site visits. I want to remind you not to do site visits together. We don't want to see a walking quorum. I'd like you might want to possibly research the property values around these fields. And then a reclamation plan, if we can't get that document from We Energies, something's got to be put in place for that. Those are my statements.
Okay, anybody have anything else? Rachel, I know we jumped all over the place. Is there anything that you wanted to go through on any of these three questions here? I mean, the amendment, the conditional use permit, and the major grading. I don't think you did anything with the major grading, but do you have anything you want to real quickly go through with us on this?
Yes, thank you. Just really quickly, and I appreciate the questions discussion so far. Mark, you kind of hit a bunch of the ones I had on my list, so that is great. I did have, I guess, just wanted a little bit more clarity. I think you touched on this a little bit already, but to understand the grading or if not grading, like the earth disturbance and where exactly you'd be disturbing on site. You mentioned the inverters being centrally located. Is that the central kind of spine that's shown on the site plan? Is that where those would be? And is that the only place where earth would be disturbed? I guess I want to understand more the nature of how your equipment and the racking structures would be put into the ground and how deep it would go. I heard you mention 2 feet, but it looks like one of the plans shows maybe a 7-foot, unless I'm reading it wrong, just how far would the posts go into the ground and where exactly would the trenching be done for the utilities?
Sure. Yeah. The posts for the racking itself go into the ground around 7 feet. That varies depending on the site, but that's generally what it is. And I think it does say it on that detail that I provided. Sorry, I don't have it off the top of my head, but it's around 7 feet, 7.5 feet. That's just the post driven straight into the ground. There's no digging or concrete or anything. It's just driven into the ground. And then for the inverters, which are located directly to the west of our little parking pad there, alongside of the transformer for the utility and our service gear. Those inverters will be on the similar steel posts that are driven into the ground, only about 4 feet, but yeah, they're all lined up in a row on steel posts. And there will be digging down the road that you see down the middle, up to almost the third from the northern row that stops there. And there will be conduit. So it's a 2-foot trench going from the inverters up, most of the way up north and almost all the way down to the south, down that middle row. And that will be the extent of the trenching. And then there will be the gravel road, which is the other disturbance that we have.
So there's no footings being poured anywhere on this site?
Correct. It's all driven pile with no concrete.
You realize this is on a quarry, right?
Yeah, we know.
Okay.
We already did geotech sampling and yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, where's the shelf, the limestone shelf and that?
It's on the kind of the quadrant to the southeast. That's where we're gonna have, the most trouble getting 7.5 feet on every post.
Yeah, I was gonna,
Is the shelf
in
down
some,
around 3-4 feet?
yeah,
Oh, it's about 5.5. And if we can get 5.5, then we can do a pull test and verify that it's in there good enough. It's basically, if we don't get that, then we have to drill down and pack gravel in to get the depth. So that's the way to remediate any rejections.
Rachel, anything else?
Yeah, just briefly, I want to mention, also I share the concerns and questions regarding decommissioning the site or removing the equipment. And from what I've seen, I have looked at kind of nationwide guidance. The American Planning Association has a few different publications on solar, but one that I looked at is called Planning for Utility Scale Solar Energy Facilities. I think that would be helpful. I'd be happy to share that with commissioners if you'd like to look at it. That addresses the potential impacts of facilities like this, including many that are quite a bit larger than this, but I think it's a really a good summary of general concerns and issues related to these facilities. It does address property values. I have to look into it more to see where the studies were that they base their information on, but certainly removing it, and communities can require it escrows or some kind of some guarantee that somebody won't be left holding the bag with equipment on site, should the users or the installers go belly up or other situations. So I appreciate that was brought up. And perhaps we can look at that at staff level too, just to make sure if there's state laws at play there, or how that could actually work if the commission wants to go in that direction. I'm curious also if the applicant, well, we mentioned trees a couple times, but I don't think this question has been asked. We discussed if you could shift facilities a little further south to get further away from the lot line with residential properties. Similarly, would it be possible to, or desirable, I don't know, to plant a row of trees along that line so that you could actually rely on screening that's on this property and not relying on trees that are existing on others' properties without affecting the solar? I mean, I know you want sun to get to your collectors, but perhaps that could be an option, because a berm I think would take up much more space, horizontally, whereas maybe trees could be another way to help protect adjacent properties, if that is helpful.
You mean on the north side?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think from what I looked out there, there already is a tree line. I'm not sure where that is on the property line, if that's north of the property line, but from what I saw, the trees were cleared just to the point of, where our, right at the property line, and just so we can get our fence in there with a small gap around the outside.
So would you guys be willing to plant extra trees on your behalf to create a larger buffer?
For a visual break?
Yes.
Sure, yeah. I mean, if that's something that we feel would be useful, I mean, we're definitely wanting to make this work, for sure.
And the reason I ask is because the trees, if they are on the adjacent properties, there's no guarantee that they would, continue to be there, and the landowners there can certainly remove trees or whatever they want. So,
sure.
Last question: are you aware of any potential not impacts on other properties, but how this might change the tax value for Lisbon on this property. Can you speak to that at all?
I cannot, no, I'm not aware of, yeah, what impact that will have at all.
Okay. I think that's all I had, unless I know Mitch went over the grading permit. The comments in there really are to that same effect. I'm just double checking that we address those. Yeah, so we would be requiring an erosion control plan. We do mention that county review is needed as well, so that I think will provide an extra layer of review and just, you know, this is new for a lot of communities in the area, so it's not just Lisbon, but will be nice to kind of make sure that there aren't impacts to stormwater, because these facilities, in my understanding, is they can potentially have some impact. So it would just be good to just better understand how that could affect runoff, and just making sure that if there's any potential changes there, that those could be mitigated by the project. But I think that's adequately covered in the conditions that we're recommending now, and what we've discussed tonight. So that's all I have.
Okay. Does anybody else have anything?
Yes, sorry. What is the projected cost of this project?
Let's see, to We Energies, they vary a little bit depending on, it's gonna hover right around 3 million.
Is that included with the 30-year cost of the lease?
So
Or is that
We
just the
Energies is
build-out?
paying us to build it for them, and they own it.
Okay,
And so the lease payment is from We Energies to Land and Stone. So that would be a separate cost to We Energies to pay out. So they buy the system and we build it for them, and they own it.
Okay.
And then they just pay a lease payment to Land every month.
what's the initial building cost, do you know?
The building
that the
cost of
3
the
million?
system? Yeah, it's
Yeah.
around 3 million.
Okay,
Yeah, to build it, and then they would pay out, you know, their lease payment every year to,
Yep.
just for the land.
thank you.
Yeah, and then, as far as, you know, utility scale, I know that's something that you hear a lot, and I think these are, for a utility scale system, this would be like tiny compared to hundreds of megawatts, which typically you see. So if you're looking at a study that says, well, the utility scale solar will lower our property value, I think they're more referring to maybe hundreds of megawatts, not 2. So I think that, or 3, you know, 2.5. So I think when you're looking at the studies and you see prices and properties maybe being affected, I think that might be more what you're seeing, you know? So I think it's
Yeah.
important to look at the scale and what they're taking into account if you're going to look at that as a big point, you know?
Do utilities generate a tax income at all?
I believe so. Yeah, I believe they're going to take advantage of the, you know, the tax breaks that solar is right now, federal tax credits and stuff.
Any other questions?
Okay, so I don't strike out on the fence thing or the berm thing. I'm on a roll. If it would be feasible, I would then suggest that it be some type of trees, but they would need to be evergreens, because they're going to be more of a sound deadening, if there is any, you know, as we look down the road. I have no idea what the sound scenarios are going
Sure,
to be on
yeah.
this.
I think coming out and looking at a site that's active might, you know, be the only way to really, you know, get an
Okay.
idea of what it is.
Yeah, but I would certainly recommend some type of evergreens, again, as deer-proof as possible. And the, in terms of the panels, there was just, our administrator asked about that, et cetera. It also might help a little bit if you could include a very quick explanation of the panel and how much more, because a lot of us, I mean, Solar Wisconsin was a non-starter 20 years ago.
Sure, yeah.
Why? Because the panels were not that efficient.
Mhm.
Panels now are super efficient. And it would help possibly the commission members to, you know, so we could say, okay, what is the output of the panel and how much light do they actually need? It's my understanding, because we obviously have a lot of cloudy days in this state.
Sure.
But even then, with the efficiency rates that have been incorporated into the new panel designs, they're generating wattage.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
They'll generate under cloud just less, you know. And they have an anti-reflective coating on the glass that helps with absorb more light in low light conditions. But yeah, I mean, the panels now, you know, we're using 400 watt panels on these. Each panel creates 400 watts DC. So you lose a little bit in converting it to AC. But back 20 years ago, that same panel is like 50 watts, you know, so it's way more efficient. And the price point is the main reason why it, you know, it works here now. It's just way cheaper now to buy modules. So, you know, the return on investment makes sense now here, where 20 years ago it didn't, hardly anywhere actually.
What's the, speaking of that, in terms of Commissioner Mark Meyer asking questions in terms of the town not getting stuck, what's the, outside of the efficiency rate, do you know what the life rate of an average panel will be in this project? In other words, will it be 10 years? Will it be 15, 30? Do you have any idea?
Yeah, the modules that we use have a 25-year warranty. So they're fully warranted for 25 years. But typically they last far longer than that. So, you know, we're looking at the full 30-year lifespan of the system with, you know, maybe a few that go bad over time, but very few, you know, in the 7,400 or whatever we have on this one. Almost all of them will last the full lifespan.
His question was very pertinent because obviously a lot of municipalities are getting stuck with buildings that nobody wants. Shopping centers, you know, brick and mortar.
Sure.
Going belly up. And fortunately for the town, we don't have that many of those, or perhaps because they're unfortunate from a tax standpoint. But yeah, we don't want to, there were some very excellent questions raised. We don't want to be stuck. And this is a new thing.
Sure.
For us. I mean, honestly, the largest solar array I have seen is on a church that's in the city of Delafield.
Okay.
You can see it. I don't even know what road I'm on, but it's a big church and it's there. They covered their roof with solar panels.
Yeah.
Anyway, no further questions.
Just curious, how many houses will this power, roughly?
You know, that's a tough question because every house uses different. But I think the number that they came up with for Washington County was 1,800 houses, I believe. But that, you know, that's a very tricky number to come up with.
I would note too, real quick, there were discussions tonight about a maintenance plan as well, getting that taken care of, maybe put together for the next plan commission agenda. I think that was the only other detail that I think I summarized that Kathy, you didn't already address in your notes, or Rachel did. And then if there's no further questions, I think there's been a general synopsis of the tabling of, you know, this evening's request by the applicant. I assume that's agreeable to the applicant as well, to go back and work with plans, town staff, and then come back ideally next month.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
If that's what you guys feel we need to do, then.
So we would be table each one of these, or could we just do them all together?
We can do one motion to table all three of them.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
We'll move.
In regards to your maintenance plan question, we do have an O&M contract with We Energy, so we already have that put together.
Oh, perfect. So you can just
Yeah,
send
we
it
can
this way.
just show you our maintenance. We have, they do an O&M contract with us to maintain and operate the system. Yeah, so we have that contract I can send to you guys, so no problem there.
So Becky, can I just go through this list I have again?
I can't hear you.
Can I go through this list that I have again
What you would like him to send you?
of what we'd be looking for after?
Okay, sure.
So Rachel mentioned the erosion control plan that you're going to be working on with the county. Maybe an updated landscape plan to add trees near the neighbor. And also the planting detail of your plants around the equipment. Our group wants to go and view sites, a reclamation plan, and how, and if is going to need to be put in place if we don't get something that proves that that's part of the lease, that it's going to be removed by We Energies after the 30-year lease.
Sure.
So if you send us the lease, that would probably take care of that for us.
Okay.
Agreement with Stark that no equipment or structures will be placed in your driveway area. And then the maintenance plan is what I have. Just wanted to summarize so we had it
Okay.
all.
Perfect.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you.
Have that?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we're looking for a motion to table.
So move.
Second,
Okay, there's been a motion made and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay. The motion
Passes 4-0.
passes
4-0.
4-0. Okay. All right, then we'll move on. Discussion and necessary action on the request by Jeff Osgood, Quick Trip Inc. for the review of current conditional use permit for the property located at N67 W27619 Silver Spring Drive, LSBT 0219.994.008.
Rachel?
Yes, and this is on the agenda tonight. Occasionally, we have been in contact at the staff level with Quick Trip because, as you know, you have two projects that have been proposed. This is regarding the project by Quick Trip that was previously approved back in fall of 2019 for the Silver Spring Drive location. And this would be to replace the existing gas station and C-store with a new building. So just reconfiguring the site. If you recall, the other year, they consolidated a few parcels in this area to create an expanded size of site. And as the town approved a conditional use permit. I'm just referencing here that some things in packets. I also included on the slide a map showing the site location. And in your packets, really, just to help jog memory, if anybody needed that, it included the existing conditions sheet from the site plan that was approved, as well as the proposed site conditions, what it will look like. And my understanding is that the applicant said to delay their project starting, I think related to COVID. And if someone is here tonight, perhaps they could speak to that more, but that's my understanding is really the gist of it. They did obtain some right-of-way permits to do driveway work from the county on both of their entranceways. However, they have not pulled a building permit yet. And so this is sort of on here as just a check-in with the commission if you wanted an update on the project. But also, since we were just going through the conditional use ordinance, one of the things in there, in your current code actually, is that the conditional uses technically are set to expire after 12 months if the project has not commenced. But that requires some determination on the part of the Plan Commission as to, say that the project has not commenced. And so if that's an issue, you have a tool there that you could use to actually terminate the conditional use, and that would have require the applicant to start over and get it reapproved. And so this is just on here tonight as a question for you. And if you think it, needs to go through that process, or if you have questions for Quick Trip, a chance to kind of review the CUP. Also, your ordinance provides that you could do annual or regular reviews of conditional use permits that you've previously approved. So this is along those lines of just checking in on this because this project has not actually gone forward yet in a substantial way.
Comments from the board? Anything, Ted? Ed?
Nothing.
Becky?
No, I don't have anything.
Mark?
No real questions. Just, I just want to say that I don't think we need to make them go through all that again. I don't think it was their fault that it's delayed, but I would be curious as to when it's gonna get going.
Agreed.
Last I heard from Mr. Osgood was that he didn't know if it would even go forward in 2022. It sounded like it could possibly be after that time frame now, given the way they've had to reschedule various projects of theirs. So I don't have a set answer, but it sounds like it could be a little while yet.
So not this year and not next year.
That's right. It sounded like it was probably not on the schedule for next year. What I've heard about it keeps changing a little bit. I think at one point I heard maybe 2022, but I just talked with him the other week, and that's the latest that I've heard.
Being they already have an operating site there, I'm imagining that's why the delay is more acceptable to them.
That's right.
Priority. Right.
Yeah.
So. Is there any- Go ahead.
Just very quickly, Mr. Chairman, seems to be, obviously it's a marketing decision on the part of Quick Trip, but they just built a location, as we know, on Lisbon and 164. So I think they're just, holding their cards close to their chest at this point, even though the location we're talking about has more than paid for itself if the people that are working there that I've talked to on occasion are being honest with me.
I imagine they are. I'm sure it's very busy. Everybody loves Quick Trip around here.
Yeah.
So what would be the recommended, any action on this, or just let it go and we'll just see how it goes?
No actions needed, nothing formal.
Okay.
Okay.
Agreed.
Agreed.
All right. That'll bring us to item C, is assignment of annual site inspections of mining operations and quarries. This is old news for most of us on the Plan Commission, but our staff has never been part of this before, so this is new for them.
So I printed out. Oh, too many mics are left. You should all have a small printout right here of all of the quarries within the town that should have been next to your packets. I don't really know the procedure for doing this, so I'm gonna let Chairman take the lead on this.
All right. So typically we would get volunteers and then we would just say you're doing this.
And Brian's gone, so he'll get
And
whatever.
Brian gets whatever's left.
He gets whatever's left.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'll jump in the pool.
I'll take Lafarge on Hillside Road.
I didn't want Lafarge.
Aw,
In my backyard, Genesee, I would easily, Genesee aggregate,
okay. Ed's on Genesee.
and then,
All three of them?
well, the one that's north and south of Plainview.
Are we willing to take the last one?
I don't know which one that is.
So there's three there's the three different areas for Genesee.
Yeah.
I think they're all actually in
It
the
looks
same
like they're
area.
all on
though.
164.
Yeah,
I think
they're all,
they're all like not quite interconnected, but real
Yeah.
close.
again, I said north and south of Plainview, west of one.
That should be all of them.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I was also, willing to, Payne and Dolan really only has one site, and that's of course near our compost site. So Payne and Dolan,
Okay.
or did somebody breathlessly want that?
I didn't see anybody chomping.
Can we
there, so
arm wrestle over it, or
You probably win quick.
I would lose?
And you can take a couple more.
How many you want, Ed?
That's it.
All right, so Ed's gonna do
I'm
Payne
leaving
and-
the rest for you, Mark.
Ed's gonna do Payne and Dolan and Genesee aggregate. Chad is gonna take Lafarge. So that leaves, so there is no,
There's no
yeah,
health class
there is
anymore,
ideal.
right?
There's one ideal.
Oh, is there? Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
That's the stone cutting over there.
Oh, yeah, it's right here.
And then we've got Land and Stone, which is there's.
Three.
It's three, it's technically, it's almost two, but it's three.
Yeah.
And then Stark is, whoever does Land and Stone pits would do the Stark one, I'd imagine. They're really interconnected. So we could probably assign that one to Brian. Teach him, it'll teach him for going on vacation.
Yeah, he's in Jamaica. He doesn't care.
So then we just need somebody to do the Helquest Stone one, Ideal one on Town Line Road.
Okay, I can do that.
Right, Parks on that one. Right,
Oh,
When is the required by date on these?
next Tuesday?
yeah, okay. Ain't gonna happen.
Barge on Hillside Road?
Just, we prefer to get them back in a month, but we've been going 2, but no longer than that.
Yeah, I looked back to the last few years and it looks like everything was reviewed at the May Plan Commission meeting. So if you want to have stuff turned in end of April,
Sure.
so
need
we can
to-
distribute it.
We need to have them done by May, I think is the requirement. That's why we start them now, but, right.
Sounds
Perfect.
good to me.
So we did have some forms.
There was a form.
that
Yes.
would be in the-
I have packets for everybody who is here. Mark, I will email you yours. I don't know if you saw the email I sent you about that earlier.
Yeah, I did. I wanted to thank you. I had the list in front of me while we were talking.
Fantastic.
Okay,
So we can pick them up from you tonight. All right.
that'll bring us to the planner report.
I should unmute for that. All right, this will be a pretty brief one here, just focusing on items that we know are, or that we expect will be coming in for next month's Plan Commission agenda. Staff is working now on the impact fee ordinance. If you recall, we kind of have we updated the parks plan in December and January. The impact fee study would be based on that in order to charge fees for new buildings that would affect your future park and recreation facilities. That will be coming very soon. We have a certified survey map, a minor lot line adjustment that has been submitted, so that will come in next month for Crooked Bridge Drive. In the works also is a Waukesha County Public Works site doing a tank replacement, which would be a site plan amendment. However, it appears they're having issues meeting the setback requirements of the district. So this, I anticipate, is going to Board of Appeals first and then would come to Plan Commission. So not necessarily next month, but that is an active application that staff is working with them on. The quick trip at Highway 164 and County Line Road, so a different site than the one we discussed earlier, but one that you have seen and held a public hearing on last year. I think last I heard their intent was to submit for the April meeting. We haven't seen that yet, but I think that's still on there as a likely item. Similar for the Quarry Corners truck wash, it sounds like they are possibly going to submit for the April agenda. And they were also working with staff on that, and as a follow-up from conversations with them over a year ago regarding how design standards would apply to their site. They may or may not be ready for next month, but hopefully they will. And Kathy, correct me if I'm wrong on any of these, but I also have Lafarge Quarry on here because they just needed a change to their hours of operation. So that would be a site plan of operation amendment for that.
They
Also
dropped that off this week.
perfect. Thank you. And then I guess following up on this for site inspection of mining operations, it sounds like that's a follow-up item to what you just discussed. Is that right? And then selection of annual site inspections of business and conditional use operations. I don't think I've seen this yet myself either, so it sounds
Nope,
like
I will have
housekeeping.
those ready next month because we did those in April last year.
All right. That's all I have unless unless you all can think of something I haven't touched on here.
Anything from anyone?
Just out of curiosity, because I'm directly affected by it, did the old or the retirement home thing fizzle out with Chris Aubrey on Howard Lane?
He hasn't come back with anything.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
All right. Before I go, Lisa, I sent you a message on Facebook actually a couple times, but in the past, I don't know if you ever go on there, but if you check your messenger, there's actually a message from me on there that has my contact information on there. So other than that, does anyone else have anything to add? All right. Motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ed. All in favor?
Aye.
I,
Opposed?
Aye.
We are out at 8:44. Thank you, everybody.
Good night, thanks.